Well, hello everybody and welcome to the latest episode of For Those About to Pod, We Salute You. On this episode, Match Year in Rock is 2011. We discuss the latest news, we have our hidden gems, and we discuss the man behind the desk, behind the window, the producer. But before we go any further, let me introduce to you my partner in crime, the high priest of podcasting himself, Mr. Matt Rogers. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Hello, Brian. Yeah, very good. Thank you. The high priest of podcasting. I like that very much indeed. I think I've got a feeling I'm more of a kind of altar boy of podcasting rather than the high priest. But thank you all the same. So this is our 18th, by the way, Brian.
What? 18th show? Wow. Fabulous.
We are 18 podcasts in to our 2.5 million podcast career. It made me think, actually, do you remember your 18th birthday? I imagine you were getting ready for your 15 years at university, packing your bags. Oh, no, I remember you'd already packed your bags when you were 16, hadn't you? So you're already, bags packed. So off you went.
With my denim jacket with Meatloaf on the back.
Denim jacket, exactly. Meatloaf, patch. So do you remember it? Do you remember
I don't. I genuinely do not remember my 18th birthday. I have no idea.
That's a shame. I thought it was going to be a really funny section.
No. I can remember my 21st, but I can't remember. No, I can't remember my 18th. I got a lovely watch. Mum and Dad bought me a lovely watch for my 18th birthday.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
I won't ask if you've still got it, of course.
I have. I still have it.
Oh, that's nice.
I still have it. Yes.
All these years later.
And what about you? What about you in good old Englandshire? Were you up to no good on your 18th birthday?
Oh, really? No, I do. I was thinking about it. I did go out with some friends on my actual 18th, I think. We went to the pub because you could. That was the thing. I mean, you and I can now drink legally in Britain because you have to be 18 to drink.
Yes.
In this country, to alcohol, not obviously water and tea, but alcohol. And yeah, I think we just went out and sort of celebrated that. Really, the fact that you could have a couple of beers. Although in those days, I mean, this is a few years ago. As long as you looked sort of 18-ish, then you were, you could have whatever you like. So it was, I do remember going out. I remember actually one present I got, and I don't remember it was a kind of a group thing or one person got it for me, but I got Coda, which was the Led Zepp sort of bookend to their career, which came out in about, I think, 82. It's still a good album, actually.
Never listened to it. Yeah.
We should. It should. It's got I'm Gonna Crawl and Waters Walk and I Can't Quit You Baby and so on. I'm only saying these so you'll put them on the playlist, of course. It's purely mercenary. So anyway, we are 18, Brian. So
we are 18.
Happy 18th to us.
Exactly. Our podcast can now go and have a drink.
That's right. Legally in Britain. I have to wait a few years in America, of course. Anyway.
Episode 21.
Indeed. So, Brian, on to the news. What has been happening and what has caught your eye in the last few weeks?
It seems to be every time we do a podcast, we lose somebody in the rock community. And last week was a big loss. Mr. Charlie Watts, 80 years of age, who was the drummer, the timekeeper for the Rolling Stones, passed away very peacefully amongst his friends and family. And I think the outpouring of love and tributes to Charlie Watts from everybody just shows you how much he was revered just as a musician. And I've listened to and read a few of the tributes and stories, and you probably know this story as well. You probably read it last week, where the Stones were holed up in a hotel, and Mick Jagger was calling for, where's my drummer? Where's my drummer? And Charlie Watts came out and chinned him and said, I'm not your drummer, you're my singer.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, he just, a great drummer. And I think the Stones will keep going. I know Steve Jordan, who's played with John Mayer, and he's played in the Winos along with Keith Richards. He was planning to sit in the tour anyway, so I can see the Stones keeping going, at least for this tour. But yeah, sad passing of Charlie Watts. Love the Stones. Yeah,
yep. That was sad. He had a good innings, bless him.
Yeah,
but it's a shame. What an icon. I always thought he was the kind of straight man of the Stones. I'm sure he had an interesting past, but quite often look at a picture and there's a classic, I forget what era it is, fairly recent, maybe the last 20 years. And you got Keith and Mick and Ronnie. They're all looking a bit dishevelled.
Yes.
To say the least. It's only because essentially it's been since Bill Wyman left, it's kind of the four of them, isn't it? Really,
yes.
With hired hands and all that. So you had those three kind of reprobates, scruffy looking Herberts, and then Charlie, immaculately dressed, probably a suit, maybe a tie. There's a few clips of him, and when he's kind of rolling his eyes as if to say, "Oh God, what's he up to now?" sort of thing. When Jagger's prancing around. So I'll miss him for that kind of straight guy sort of style, I suppose. And as you say, metronomic, not flash.
Yeah,
certainly not a kind of a Mike Portnoy and Neil Peart or whatever. Not one of those kind of drummers, but certainly one of those underrated, metronomic, on the money, and will be missed, as you say. So, Dave Lee Roth and Gene Simmons, what's happening there? What's happened? What's going on? They're big boys. They shouldn't need to be doing this in the press. What's happened there, Brian?
No matter what's happened in the last week, Gene's obviously come out and apologised and said, sorry, I had a bad pizza and a bad cheese sandwich, and Dave, I love you. Because it's as if the backward compliment to Dave that says you're one of the world's greatest showmen, etc. But you're not at the heights of your power, therefore we're not going to have you supporting us on the tour, etc. And Dave just replies back with a black and white picture of a child giving a single digit sign. And I think he retweet it about 18 times.
Possibly. And I think understandably, Gene came out and said that David Lee Roth was one of the greatest front men, probably better than Jagger, Plant, Rod Stewart, but he's not anymore. And I thought that's a bit cruel because, we're all getting on a bit. And it was, as we've discussed before, there's a medical thing whereby, your voice changes. Oh, certainly men. Yeah. And, I did think, well, there's an old adage that, all publicity is good publicity. And this has got to be great for Kiss, good for David Lee Roth as well, because certainly brings David Lee Roth back into the public eye, as it were. At least, a public eye. As you said, Gene's come out and apologised. Paul Stanley has chipped in and said, he didn't mean it. We've all had a lot to drink. Come on, lads. So, it's just a bit of fun, I think, ultimately, at the end of the day. Good publicity all round.
I think so. And then, ironically, all of this publicity on social media, and then Paul Stanley gets test positive for COVID and Kiss are off the road for the next 10 days. Yeah. So they're all off the road. So Kiss are going to miss their next 3 shows, etc. Which in itself, when you look at the news around rock, it seems to be, besides new albums and new releases, and you and I are excitingly waiting for the new Iron Maiden album, but it just seems to be everybody seems to be coming down with COVID-19 for whatever reasons. Obviously, Black Star Rider were supposed to be headlining Stone Dead Festival last weekend, and they had to pull out. And good old Uriah Heep again.
Trusty old Uriah Heep stepped up again. Always on the bench, always ready to put their boots on, tuck the shin pads in. Yep, we're up for it.
Exactly.
And the way they came.
Super sub Heap.
Absolutely. Sounded like a good festival, actually. We should go next year to that, in all seriousness.
Yeah, it looked good.
A good festival.
It looked really good. TerraVision were on the bill. It's I think it's run by the Donington fan page. A lot of the guys who are Donington veterans. Yeah, and they go
Which
back.
we are as well, of course.
Well, you are. I'm. My Donington experience was 2016, so I'm not exactly a veteran, but it goes back to the old, one stage, 5-6 bands, which is what they was done. Yeah,
exactly. Horrible toilets. Bottles of what being thrown around. Yeah, good times. Good times. Great days.
Exactly. So
what else, Brian?
Yeah,
what else?
so we touched on. So obviously, we're recording the show today, which is the 31st of August, and in a couple of days' time, Iron Maiden's album will be dropping, and from what I gather, it's getting a lot of rave reviews from the media. So we'll maybe talk about that in the next episode. But one album that has just been released in the last few days or so is a great band, Canadian artist called Danko Jones. Danko Jones has got a brand new album out called Power Trio. It's a 3-piece band. It's Danko on guitar and his 2 mates on bass and drums. And interestingly, Danko asked a certain great guitar player in one of the greatest trios in heavy metal history to play guitar on the album, Mr. Phil Campbell. So Phil Campbell from Motorhead is guesting on Danko's album, and the opening track on the album is a track called I Want Out, and I'll put it on the playlist for everybody. It is just a snorter of a track. It's good rock, bit punky, but it's nice to see Danko back. I started following Danko in the early 2000s. I've got a couple of his albums, and then he fell out of my peripheral vision from a music perspective. But his new album, I've had a quick listen through it. It's really, really good. So good to see some new music coming out, mate. And Danko Jones, Power Trio.
I'm going to listen to it because it's got a song on it called Blue Jean Denim Jumpsuit, which I mean, the title alone is worth a listen. Surely.
It is. He's very good. He's very, very good. So Danko's pretty good. And another...
more? There's more.
Another band. We've talked about this in the past. When who's in the band and what's in the band. Remember a time about 10 years ago when who is Queensryche? What is Queensryche? How many Queensryche are there? So Alcatraz. A band I loved in the early 80s, who obviously Yngwie J. Malmsteen and Steve Vai were both in Alcatraz along with Graham Bonnet. But this isn't the Graham Bonnet version of Alcatraz. This is the version of Alcatraz with Jimmy Waldo and Gary Shea. And they have just released a new album, which is either called V or 5. I'm not sure which one it is. And one of the busiest men in rock music on vocals is singing on the album is Mr. Doogie White, who has played with Michael Schenker, and he obviously was the last singer in Rainbow before Ronnie Romero came in. So yeah, Alcatraz, new music coming out. So lots of interesting new tunes on their way.
Very good. Well, I'm going to just mention two singles that are out at the moment. One is by the excellent Samantha Fish. Really good song. It's been out a few weeks called Twisted Ambition. I love it.
It's fabulous.
Check it out, boys and girls. So I did some research on Samantha Fish. She's been recording since 2009. She's American. And during that period, in some years, she's been recording 2 albums. I think that's great. Good on her. That's it. The old days, isn't it? And the other one, which I was listening to the radio on I went down to see, well, I didn't go on my own. I went with my wife to see my wife's family, parents. Another song, which I'd like to draw everyone's attention to, is by Els Bailey, who's British. And it's a song called Cheats and Liars. Check that out. Another good song. While we're on the subject, because at some point we need to think about our songs of the year, Brian, so I thought I'd start to plant a few seeds.
Songs of the year. Oh, actually, think about it. It's 1st of September tomorrow. We're into the last quarter of the year.
Oh, stop it. You'll be saying the C word next and we'll all be in trouble.
Have you decided what you're getting me for Christmas yet?
I have actually.
Have you?
Yeah, it's all pre-planned. Don't worry. I start my Christmas shopping at the end of August. You very well know. Right. What else is there? Finally, well, almost finally. So, this made me laugh today. I have to say, Dream Theatre, who we've talked about once or twice on the podcast, have announced their UK tour,
Ooh.
which is going to be great. All 3 dates of it. But what made me smile, of course, London, needless to say, is on the list. And on the itinerary, Newcastle, which is in the northeast of England, for those who don't know, which is fine. That caters for, everyone else in England, and Scotland as well. And then Belfast.
Yay! Some love.
Ground. I don't know which venue it is in Belfast. Is it the Queen's Hall still, maybe? I don't know.
Oh gosh, that's a good. No, it'll probably be. There's a purpose-built venue called the Odyssey.
Is there?
Yeah, it's that's the big Enorma Dome that they play in.
Apparently, it might be the same place, the SSE Arena.
That's it. Yeah.
Is that the same place?
Same place. Just changes.
Sounds great. Maybe we should go and see them. Mine's on a Wednesday though. It's quite close to my birthday though. They're actually playing London on my birthday next year.
Oh,
just
okay.
Saying,
okay.
If you want to get in early, and all that. Anyway, so that made me laugh when I heard that, because you're always whinging about UK tours just being London, and there's one in Newcastle, which is what, I don't know, a mere 2 hours from you.
Exactly, or a flight. But actually, to be quicker, it's a 30-minute flight from Edinburgh to Belfast.
What's your problem? Yes,
my year in rock.
Is it your year in rock?
No, it's
our year in rock. One's year in rock.
It's one's year in rock, which is yours, and you obviously podcast pickers. Last episode, Matt threw me the doozy of a year of 2003, and I
turned out to be okay though, didn't it?
It was okay. It was
School of Rock.
There was a few things, and you, for this episode, you've got the year that was 2011. So tell me all about your year in rock in 2011, Matthew.
Wow, what a build-up. It's like whispering Bob Harris. I said not that long ago. It was 10 years ago.
Yes.
The big thing that I remember in 2011 was the second High Voltage Festival. And that was in London. There's a festival in London. It was short-lived. It was only 2 years. It was like, this was the final one of the 2. But they really got it right then. And then the bill, you and I went to both days, didn't we? And I don't think you got heat stroke because it wasn't that hot. But the bill was just incredible. Judas Priest headlined, the aforementioned Dream Theatre also headlined the other night, Sunday night.
Yeah.
Also on the bill was Slash, Black Country Communion, Thunder, a certain Thin Lizzy.
Yes, yeah.
Queensryche, we mentioned them earlier, Skin. Rival Sons were on the bill, and they played 2 sets. I don't know if you remember, Brian, it was quite sad circumstances in that there was a terrible mass shooting in Norway, so they stepped in when, I think it was Electric Wizard, could be wrong, dropped out, understandably, and Rival Sons stepped in. And I don't think we thought much of them, but now we love Rival Sons.
They were getting a lot of play at the time. I remember on Planet Rock, they were getting really, really pushed, as well as one of the early bands that was on the Sunday, which was a great band called St. Jude.
I do remember St. Jude.
They were, her vocal was just,
Lynn Jackaman.
Fabulous singer.
Fantastic singer.
Yeah.
So that was probably the high point of the year. Went to a few gigs as well. I remember went to see Thin Lizzy, also with Sir Viv on guitar. God bless him. It was his birthday last week. Lovely Sir Viv, 59 last week. Belated happy birthday, Viv.
Happy birthday, Vivian.
Yeah, he was on with Lizzy at the Indigo, which is a relatively small venue within the O2 complex in London. You been there, Brian?
I've not been to the Indigo. No. I've only, whenever I've been in the O2, I've seen the signs to it, but I've never been to the Indigo. No, never.
Yeah, it's a cool little venue. It's like purpose built, so it's perfect sound and everything. So Foo Fighters at Milton Keynes Bowl that year. That was, we talked about Milton Keynes Bowl. It's a great venue. It's a bowl. I don't know whether anyone's realised that. It's a bowl shaped.
And you put a picture on our Facebook page as well too.
I did.
You did.
An aerial shot of the bowl. And that was a fun day. Roger Taylor from Queen came on, played a couple of songs. Alice Cooper came on and played Under My Wheels and I think I'm 18 with the Foos. I mean, when you're the Foo Fighters, when you're Dave Grohl, you can just basically say, do you fancy coming and playing? Yeah, of course. Great. Yeah. And that was fun. Saw Rush at the O2 and saw Alter Bridge and Black Stone Chariot at Wembley Arena. So it was a good year for gigs. Did you, I mean, knowing you, Brian, you go to a gig like every other week, or at least you did, pre-lockdown, of course.
Yeah.
Any gigs that stood out for you in 11?
I looked at 2011 and I actually think I saw every one of my favourite bands in 2011. Really? Like you, I saw Lizzie. Mm-hmm. I saw King's X.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I went. Yeah.
Do you like King's X then?
I went to.
Are they one of your favourites?
They are one of my favourite bands. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So so King's X, Rush, It Bites, Glenn Hughes.
Wow.
Whitesnake. Saw Whitesnake. And then in 3 weekends in a row, I saw Bryan Adams, Deep Purple, and Alter Bridge, as well as High Voltage. And then there was a lovely package that went out, American bands, which was Journey, Foreigner, and Styx. And that was 2011. So no wonder I've got tinnitus.
It must be exhausted.
It was a really good year. 2011. What a great year for gigs.
That was it. Yeah, it was fantastic, wasn't it? Brilliant.
Any albums?
None. No, I didn't buy any that year. No, not one. None whatsoever. No, I wanted to. All right, I wanted to. In no particular order. Whitesnake brought out Forevermore. I remember buying that. Actually, I've got it somewhere.
I love it.
It's all right, actually. It was in a kind of a box, wasn't it? Did you get the sort of the box version, like a little cardboard box, which probably has some other stuff with it as well, like coasters and pictures of David Coverdale and so on.
I know what you did. I know you probably did exactly the same as me. There was a classic rock magazine issue.
There was.
And what you got with it is you got the history of Whitesnake with DC, and you went through all of the albums, and then you actually paid for. You got the nice album with it as well too. So you usually say to me, I'm the one that gets suckered for the deluxe super package and whatever, but you were duped this time as well as me.
Possibly. I can't remember.
Well, I did. I'm putting my hand up and said, look, I bought the special edition magazine from Classic Rock and had David Coverdale and pretend plectrums from Doug Aldrich and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great album.
One thing I noticed, Brian, is if I like to do my David Coverdale impersonation.
You do. Yes.
I do. Well, I noticed if you overdo it, you can turn into Jean-Luc Picard from Star Trek: The Next Generation. Make it so, number 2. If you're not careful.
Oh, God. Oh.
Anyway, where do we get to? So that was Forevermore. It's a good song on that.
Yes.
Forevermore, the title track. Which is nice, actually. It's a really quite a romantic song.
I love it. It's a great song.
Similarly, Love Will Set You Free. I seem to recall that was good.
Yeah, good groove.
But it's kind of classic Whitesnake in a way, isn't it? Whitesnake. Can't say Whitesnake without saying Whitesnake.
Whitesnake.
Darling. Def Leppard released Mirrorball. I think it was their first live album.
Good for them.
No, I liked it. Did you not like it?
I have it. I bought it. I paid my money. I don't like it. No,
there's some stinkers on there. There's some. I mean, there's 1 or 2 songs you think really, but I think it's good just for the intro and Rock Rock Teardrop and Switch 625's on there, and I quite like it. I still play it every now and again. But no, I mean, well, clearly not everyone's cup of tea.
No.
Brian, blimey, very disparaging.
No, I've got.
Sorry, Joe, if you're listening, and Viv. Sorry, Viv, you're listening. You played on it. Jeez. Sorry, Viv.
I love the. It's probably one of my in the big box sets. You know, the super duper deluxe super edition of Hysteria, where you get the live show from Denver in 1988 on the Hysteria tour. To me, that's I love watching. I have it in DVD and video, and I've got the CDs. That's what I listen to for Leopard live. It's a bit like, I know, how many live albums from Thin Lizzy do they put out? But everybody either listens to Live and Dangerous or Life. So to me, I'm sure Mirrorball's really, really good, but I listen to the Denver show because I think that's my favourite Leopard.
Yeah, fair enough.
Live.
Fair enough. Also in 2011, Chickenfoot released their second album called Chickenfoot 3, which is classic kind of, yeah, exactly. Sammy Hagar, tongue in cheek as always. Ha ha. It's got some good songs in it. Quite a mature album because I felt the first album was just a bit of fun, really. I mean, it's good songs in it.
Yeah.
As we know, Avenida Revolution's a killer tune off the first album. Second album was quite mature. Last Temptations on there. Dubai Blues. I think you like that song. Different
I love
Devil.
Dubai Blues, yeah.
There's some good stuff on there. I do prefer the first Chickenfoot album, I must admit, but good stuff all the same. The Foo Fighters had Wasting Light out, produced by Bush Vig, which we'll come on to later.
We will indeed, yes.
Or who we'll come on to later.
Yes.
It's good album, good solid album. Got Rope on there. And
yeah,
Walk.
Rope's a great track.
Yeah, So, yeah, some good stuff. Black Country Communion released their second album. Now, I have to mention this album because I could literally... I mean, there's no filler on that album. There's so many good songs. The Battle of Hadrian's Wall, we touched upon that song before, which is a great Joe Bonamassa song. This is why he's singing it anyway. Wrote it with Glenn Hughes and Kevin Shirley, that we also shall mention later. But my favourite song on the album, and this is your man, Glenn Hughes, at his finest. Cold is the song. Last track on the album, and it is just an absolute beauty. But a great album all round. It's got Man in the Middle on there, Battle of Hadrian's Wall, I mentioned, The Outsider. It's great stuff. Yeah, you can go on and on and on about albums this year, as you may now add to, Brian.
Well, do you know what? You've pretty much covered a lot of the great albums on 2011. I have to say, I was really surprised when we saw Black Country Communion at High Voltage in 2011. I can remember probably as much as they did Burn and they didn't do. They only did the one. I think they only did the one cover, which would have been Burn. They recorded a version of Medusa from Trapeze, but the track that I remember it to this day, which is a track called Crossfire, and it was just, the stage sounded good. It was early evening, and Black Country Communion were just like, they were great. And then I suppose they toured that album, and then everything went a little bit quiet on BCC. So a really good album. Yeah, no, the only album I would call out, which on top of the great albums that you've called out, were Fly From Here, which is an album from Yes. That was kind of pulled together from work that Trevor Horn had done with Yes from the Drama days, and they pulled that album together. And for anybody who is an occasional Yes fan or hasn't listened to them in a while, that's a really, really strong album. It's called Fly From Here. I saw them on the tour the next year, which was fantastic. And the first album proper for that, Arnel Pinedo from Journey appeared on for them, which was an album called Eclipse. One of the lead-off track on that was a track called City of Hope. Obviously, it's about Manila, where RNL's from. And it's just classic Journey, and a really, really good album. So yeah, 2011, that's the only ones I would chuck in. You covered all the bases, my friend.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was a good year.
Very good year.
It was a good year indeed. So, what happens now? Oh, I know. I remember. I have to.
You pick a difficult year for me now. I'll get like 1974. When ABBA's all over the charts or something.
No, I won't. I'm going to give you, because we mentioned earlier, your 18th before your 13 years at university. So I'm going to go for 1989.
Ooh.
Which I think you'll like.
Yeah.
There you go. Don't say I never give you anything, Brian.
1989. Consider it done.
Alrighty.
So, and the show so far, we've talked a lot about our favourite bands, our favourite albums. We've even come up with our own classic, our perfect lineups, Matt. Who's our favourite singer and who's our favourite guitarist and all this kind of stuff.
Yes,
and
I remember.
Yeah, and I was reading this week about Jason Newsted. And it's obviously 30 years since the Black Album, Metallica's Black Album, came out. And it got me thinking, there's a great album, great songs, killer single, well played and well produced. And then on the flip side, Jason Newsted came out this week and went, I was flippin' livid.
Did he use that exact word?
No, he didn't.
No.
But we don't swear on this show.
No, that's true.
They're in the outtakes, Matthew. All the swearing's in the outtakes. All the swearing. So it got me thinking. It got me thinking about Jason Newsted this week. Was going whenever they produced or recorded the album And Justice for All, there was no bass in it.
That's right. Famously, zero bottom end.
Exactly, and it just got me thinking about producers and what makes a great album. What does a producer do? Because I think in a lot of ways, whenever And Justice for All came out, and everybody's going, "Where's the bass? Where's the bass?" It's the producer who gets it in the neck. So Bob Rock gets all the plaudits for Enter Sandman, and really, really controlling what the output of that Black Album. He gets loads of plaudits, and the band played brilliantly.
Yep.
And then Flemming Rasmussen, I believe at the request of Lars and Hetfield,
and Ulrich,
exactly, going, take the bass out. And for years, Flemming has actually taken the heat for that badly produced album. Yeah, so it just got me thinking. We never seem to talk about the guy at the desk. What does the producer do?
I think we all have an idea, don't we? Some of us think they press the buttons and say do another take and all that sort of stuff. But it's a lot more complex, isn't it? But I feel that you've researched this, Brian.
I have. Usually, what the producer does is they're the ones that, as you say, supervise the performances. So they're the one that goes, give me more, give me more vocal. Supposedly Mutt Lange just absolutely drives singers. I think he nearly drove Lou Gramm demented on Foreigner 4 when he was trying to deliver, the vocals for, Waiting for a Girl Like You, etc. So they're the ones that are supervising the performance. They're the ones trying to keep everything all positive, keep things moving, from a scheduling perspective. Studios cost absolute bucket loads of money. And they're usually the guy who you're shaping the music and you're also managing the budget. Now, it got me thinking, when I look back at great albums like Hysteria, which we've talked about, there's Mutt Lange. He's the guy that's trying to manage the budget. They were nearly 4 million quid over budget.
Right.
And even at 10 days before the album was supposed to be finished, they recorded Pour Some Sugar on Me because he said the album wasn't finished.
Yep.
And I just thought, there's a producer who's actually pulled Def Leppard through the schedule, the budgets, and get an album out. Then I look at his experience with Back in Black. And Back in Black was done in 8 weeks.
Yep.
Because you've got the songs, the singer, the studio. Malcolm and Angus were ready. Everything pre-prepared. And there you go. So, and one of the things I just wanted to explore with us here was the combinations of where a producer and a band work together and where it maybe hasn't clicked as well too. So when we talk about Metallica, Bob Rock and Metallica clicked for the Black Album. But obviously, from my ears, other Metallica fans love it. The Injustice for All doesn't click with my ears, and Fleming takes the heat for it. So what's your view in terms of is there artists and producers where you go, great, no, I didn't do it for me?
Well, of course. And it's interesting you should use those two albums kind of side by side, because you're right. I think when AC/DC recorded Back in Black, which is, as we all know, one of the greatest rock albums ever, it was recorded in the Bahamas with very, very little distraction. Yeah. They went there, they played the album, they played the songs, and AC/DC knew what they wanted. They'd used Langer on Highway to Hell, and obviously it worked out really well. The last album that Bon Scott made. And then they obviously turned to him for Back in Black. And I think it's the difference between, in that respect, and you compare just, two albums side by side. Certainly his magic dust was sprinkled on both, but in different ways. Yeah. Def Leppard wanted to make a hugely complex album, on a par with the best thing that Queen had ever made, with choral vocals and huge guitars and different rhythms and so on. Whereas AC/DC, of course, are just your classic 5-piece. New singer who was desperate to make a good impression, did as many takes as you like, probably worked as long as you like, and as I said, very few distractions. Leppard, on the other hand, with Hysteria, recorded over whatever it was, 3-4 years. Not only did they want to record another Night at the Opera or Day at the Races or whatever, they also had the accident with Rick Allen during the course of it, which put them back a couple of years. And as you said, Pour Some Sugar on Me took another month to record. And obviously it was a huge successful song and hugely instrumental in taking the album stratospheric. But and Phil Collins has said it. I think when they then, that studio time meant they needed to shift another 5 million copies of an album. Yeah. And we take those figures for granted. I mean, anyone who's ever been in a band, if you sell 100 copies of your album, you're over the moon. Yeah. To sell 1 million, I mean, it's just ridiculous when you think about it. Back in Black is the third greatest selling album of all time, and Hysteria is probably like number 15 or something. But it could have all been so different with Hysteria, because they originally had gone for, their record company had suggested Jim Steinman to record, or to rather to produce Hysteria. And this is all from obviously documentaries and stuff, but Joe Elliott pointed out that it was Todd Rundgren who produced Bat Out of Hell, responsible for the sound. Jim Steinman wrote the songs, great songs as they were, but the whole orchestration and that whole wall of sound was the work of Todd Rundgren on the original Bat Out of Hell in 1976. So, who knows what Hysteria would have sounded like if they'd have kept Jim Steinman. It cost him a huge amount of money to pay out his contract, but history would suggest they made the right decision.
When I was matching up great artists with great producers to create, a great album, you have to have Bat Out of Hell on that list. And when I look at Bat Out of Hell, it is Todd Rundgren who's recorded that album. Yep. And then it just got me thinking, okay, that's the great album. What artists do then is if you've got a great formula, think like Van Halen, for example. Van Halen recorded all the way through from their debut album all the way through to 1984 with Ted Templeman. And he evolved with them, and they evolved the sound. But when I look at Meatloaf and Meatloaf's Bad Out of Hell, which is, I suppose, if you're going to do your debut album and it's your greatest album, is where do you go from next? And I listened to some more of Meatloaf's material, and there's an album which I like the lead track off it, which is Midnight at the Lost and Found. Mm-hmm. But it's not produced by Todd Rundgren, it's produced by Tom Dowd. And it just doesn't work for me. It doesn't have that. It doesn't have that operatic cabaret, etc. So to me, when I look at that jigsaw puzzle of a great, well-produced album with great singles, great performances, etc., I put in my jigsaw puzzle for Meatloaf. I put Todd with Meatloaf and Tom Dowd. It's a great album. He's an amazing producer, but it just doesn't click for me around that material. You look at 1987, that is the album for Whitesnake. It's where Keith Olsen, a very, very sheen American produced, phenomenal album. And then I compared it to Saints and Sinners. And I went, Martin Birch produced it, who is one of the greatest producers ever. But Whitesnake were, for all that Martin Birch can do, and he's worked with Purple, and he's done that whole Confidence, but Saints and Sinners was basically David recorded the album with a band that he was either just sacking or had just was just about to sack. Whitesnake were done. Martin's got to put a name against that and go, well, I produced that album. And you go, well, actually circumstances maybe went against Whitesnake, that they just were not in the headspace to produce an amazing work. Where, if you think about it, the comparisons between Hysteria and 1987, how many years were Whitesnake working on 1987? 3 or 4 years?
Right.
They were well in the hawk and needed to sell, millions of albums to break even as well too. David was so in debt, backs against the wall, and you deliver a great album.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's been some good examples of bands that have chosen right. And chosen incorrectly, as we said, Mutt Lange earlier. AC/DC used him until For Those About to Rock, and then not after that. And some would say that 80s period of AC/DC. Now, whether it's the songs or the production or the era, who knows? But there seems to be a correlation there between the fact they didn't use Lange and sales maybe didn't reach the same peak it certainly didn't reach the same peak as Back in Black. And you're right about Martin Birch. Martin Birch was the classic kind of British rock producer.
Yeah.
As you say, Deep Purple, Iron Maiden, Whitesnake, Black Sabbath, Heaven and Hell is Martin Birch's work.
Iron Maiden.
Fantastic. Maiden, exactly. Except the first album, which is very thin production. And Martin was busy with Black Sabbath doing Heaven and Hell, and otherwise the album itself would have been maybe a different kettle of fish. So, there's a fine line between good production and bad production, I guess. You do need the songs, ultimately. I mean, I was looking down the list of who produced what, and Bob Rock, we touched upon earlier, and he was kind of given this, beautiful array of songs with the Black Album. In the same sort of era, recorded the Kingdom Come album, which has been derided over the years for obviously its Zepp sound-alike. And that's the comparison. You need good songs, really, ultimately. And Metallica were at that kind of, that purple patch. The stars were aligned. That's some, amazing tunes, Sabbath, True, and Nothing Else Matters, and The Unforgiven, just some great tunes. Yeah. And Bob Rock had to just sprinkle his magic dust over them, and And that was that. Interestingly, I was reading recently that he swore after the Black Album, and because Metallica are notoriously difficult to work with, especially not all of them, just Hetfield and Ulrich, for reasons we touched upon earlier. And Bob Rock said, "I'm never going to work with you two again." And he ended up doing the next 3 or 4 albums with them, Load and Reload, and finished with St. Anger.
Yeah.
And Lou said about that, the better, I think. So, it's an interesting one. I'm always intrigued by this, and I'd be interested to get your view on this. But I'm always intrigued when bands say, "Oh, he was the 6th member or the 5th member of the band," sort of thing. And I always think, well, is that a good thing? Because do you want someone who's going to, really kind of bully you and, as Martin Birch used to do. Martin Headmaster Birch, I think he had a different nickname on every album.
He did, didn't he? Yes, yeah.
And, bully you into doing take after take after take. And the take of Bruce Dickinson on Number of the Beast, that big scream at the beginning, was basically like take 84. And Bruce just basically had enough. That scream was just basically his outpouring of frustration. So I'm never quite sure as to whether, 5th member or 6th member or whatever it is a good situation to be in.
Yeah, and I was looking at producers, looking at the topic, I would agree with you, because there are some artists or there's some producers who have a sound. So you take someone like, okay, it may not be in the rock genre, the rock sphere that we're talking about, but you look at someone like Jeff Lynne. So you think of Jeff Lynne, and when he records ELO or Jeff Lynne's ELO, it's a very polished production. And when he produced Tom Petty's solo album Full Moon Fever, that sounds very ELO and it's got Jeff on it. And then George Harrison's album Cloud9 has got a very ELO feel to it. So sometimes a producer brings a sound in with them. And when I listen to Hysteria, and then you listen to Waking Up the Neighbours by Bryan Adams, which was in 1991, you listen to the gang vocals that's on that album, you might as well have Joe Elliott. It's Mutt Lange is doing all the backing vocals, but it just sounds that layered, complex sound. So Mutt comes with a sound, and for me, if that works for an artist, that's the producer's molding a sound. I'm much more of a fan of a producer like Martin Birch, who will go in with Purple, Maiden, and it still sounds like Iron Maiden. Martin Birch didn't have a sound, but what he did was he was a great engineer, good producer, and made the band make sure that they were prepared to go into a studio and be ready to work pre-production and all that kind of stuff. And so
I do like that. I know what you mean, but I like the some of the stories about Mutt Lange, and particularly the gang vocals. He introduced that on Highway to Hell with AC/DC, and I think that as well as the good songs on that album, Girls Got Rhythm and Walk All Over You, and obviously the title track, Touch Too Much. He introduced that sort of gang vocals, because before then, AC/DC was produced by Vanda and Young, George Young, the older brother of the Young brothers, and they had a certain sound, but he kind of added that, like, as you call it, gang vocals, a sort of layered vocals, and all of a sudden you had commercial, radio friendly, still the AC/DC sound, but they've moved on from that barroom kind of rabble that they once were. And similarly, famously again, he I think you told me this, he made Joe Elliott do that little squeal on the end of his vocal lines, because apparently, it appealed to women. And of course, women, big demographic, listens to rock music. Let's have them. And Dave Lee Roth did it as well. He kind of did it. I think maybe it was whether Dave Lee Roth did it or Mutt Lange picked up on it, and so on and so forth. Yeah. The other example that I also like is, and we talked about Butch Vig earlier. Did you know that Butch Vig's real name is Brian, by the way?
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah. So Butch Vig, great producer, great moustache. Seems like a really nice guy. But obviously recorded, as we touched upon earlier, in the last episode, he recorded Nevermind with Nirvana.
Yeah.
And he got the best out of Kurt Cobain, both from a guitar perspective and also vocally. And he, again, famously convinced Kurt Cobain to double track his vocals. And because the only reason he was able to do that is to say, oh, by the way, John Lennon, you're a big fan of John Lennon. Well, he used to do that. And all of a sudden, you can picture it. Kurt Cobain's ears pricked up. But you listen to Little Soul Things on that Nevermind album. And, there are certain little tweaks that you think that helped to make that album, as well as the great songs and the great playing. Because you don't have a good album. You can have the greatest producer ever if you've got terrible songs, of course, and horrible playing. But little tweaks like that, I think, are fascinating. Those little bits of magic
totally
dust.
And he's a drummer as well too. And I think, yeah, but obviously he plays drums, or he did play drums in Garbage, who he's produced as well too.
Oh, that's right, of course, yeah.
And you can just, when you listen to that drum break at the beginning of Smells Like Teen Spirit, it's just, you can just tell. Obviously, the albums before that were very lo-fi, that sort of Seattle sound. And don't get me wrong, there was no big budget for Nevermind. They were still, I think Butch basically was given, a very, very small, meager, budget to work with. They recorded in his studio, did overdubs, and it was done really, really quickly.
That's right.
And just... but he was able to deliver it, and you're right. He just had a way in which he recorded the band. History or Kurt wasn't very kind to Butch after that, unfortunately, because he said,
"Oh, really?
Yeah, I think he wasn't very happy with how when the album was put out, and I think originally he was the production team, but he actually." Wasn't happy with the mixing of the album, and the album had been mixed by somebody different. He said it had been produced brilliantly and engineered brilliantly by Butch, but actually the mixing of the album Kurt wasn't happy with. But so for me, when I was kind of looking at this topic of producers, are they what do they do and how do they do it? And when we looked at, we've touched on some of the great producers. We've not mentioned people like Tony Visconti, who to me, George Martin, Kevin Shirley, who's probably the new Martin Birch. Yep. But I think of somebody like Tony Visconti, who a bit like Mutt Lange, when a band is in disarray, like Thin Lizzy were in 1979. They were all over the place. They were in, Black Rose was being trying to be recorded, and for whatever reasons the band was not functioning well. Gary Moore was back in it, and Tony Visconti pulled that band together and recorded them. Some of the songs he recorded them in concert pitch, because Phil was being quite. Thin Lizzy have always famously been. I've always sung down half a semitone to be easier on Philip's voice, and obviously for the tone of his voice, he's got that nice sort of low timbre. But Visconti pushed them hard and made sure that they recorded that album, some of it in concert pitch, and he worked them really hard. And I think someone like Visconti really earned his money as a producer when a band was just like. Really not in a great place. So I just would like to, having done a little bit of research in this on the topic of production, I actually came up with what I think is the six S's for creating the perfect album. So here's my S's. You got to have the songs.
Yep.
The single, you think about Black Album hits with Sandman. Back in Black, You Shook Me All Night Long. It's the single, the sound. And when I talk about the sound, that's the production, the mixing, the singer. Singer's got to be on it.
Yep.
The studio. I think you've got to get the right. You talked about the Bahamas. You got the right studio, and the final one was the situation. Where are the band? Are the band back to the wall? They're in an album, bit like Def Leppard, bit like Whitesnake, and they're just gonna, this album, it's all out. We're gonna produce the best work, and that's what I would summarize. What makes a great album, and if you've got a good producer that helps you to do that. Then you're going to have the next Hysteria 1987 Back in Black.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
So one of the things I'd be interested, we'll put up on the Facebook page some of the albums that we think are sonically super, and we'll juxtapose it with some of the albums from the same artists where it maybe was a little bit short. From a production perspective, be really interested to hear what our listeners think about some of the albums.
All 12 of them.
All 12 of them. In terms of with these artists, which ones were your favourite albums produced, and which ones weren't? There you go.
Good call. It's not a competition, though, is it? Just checking.
It's not competition.
No, good. No, because you know why.
We have no budget.
Correct. Right, should we move on?
We will do. Hidden Gems.
It is. Shall I do it?
You did.
Ready?
Uh-huh.
Hidden Gem time. Hashtag HGT.
HGT.
That's got a trend now, you see. I'll put that out there. Hashtag HGT. By the way, talking to Twitter, we should give a shout out to our new creative consultant, shouldn't we? Really? We've got someone who helps us.
I thought he was a director. I thought he was a creative director. Have you demoted him to creative consultant?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. He's a consultant. He's not. Don't give him too much of a title. It'll go to his head. Our Twitter is looked after by Kelvin Bathe, and also he helps us out with a few ideas. So thanks, Kelvin. Right. Anyway, where were we? So Hidden Gem time. I just can't hold that note very long. I must work on that. Right, so what you got for us, Bride, this week, this time?
What have I got for you?
Episode 18.
Episode 18. I am going to go with a band that was formed in 1989.
Oh, really? How appropriate. Wow, there's no such thing as coincidences, as they say.
Well, isn't it bizarre that I go with an album in 89 and you give me, which obviously means I can't put this album in my year of rock next time, and it may have, would it have made it? Who knows? And I just thought, wow, I loved this album when it came out. So this is a band called Badlands.
Yeah.
Badlands was founded by Jakey Lee from the Ozzy Osbourne band. A great singer, sadly missed Ray Gillen, who obviously sang in Black Sabbath as well too. Eric Singer, who now is earning his trade as the Cat in Kiss. He was on drums, and the bass player was Greg
Jason.
Jason.
In Milk and Sardines, though, doesn't he? Apparently, as the Cat in Kiss. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
It was a true story. Doesn't get money or anything. Just wants milk and sardines as the Cat.
All right.
Anyway, sorry.
My hidden gem for this episode is the debut album by Badlands. It's called Badlands. It's a phenomenal album. I remember when the MTV video came out in '89 of a track called "Dreams in the Dark."
Fantastic song.
Wasn't it just? It was like
killer.
Absolutely killer track, and
just
then
pure MOR ladled on. Fantastic.
It was fabulous, and I followed Badlands all the way through. Never got to see them live. I do have a bootleg of a show that they played in the Astoria.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was basically, I think Jake fired Ray. I think he fired him on the stage that night. They were very, very combustible, as a band. But great band, and harken back to the old 4-piece free type. Ray Gillen could sing the phone book. As far as I'm concerned, he's an amazing vocalist.
Amazing singer, fantastic. Sadly missed. What would his career have been if he'd have lived? But yeah, that's great. That's a great shout, Brian. A very great shout. Very good, great shout. So I've got an album as well, actually. For a change. I've got a secondary hidden gem, which I'll come to in a minute.
Okay.
But there's an album that came out in 2000. I'm not sure we might have missed this when we did that stellar year that was 2000.
Okay.
A few podcasts ago. So after Slash left Guns N' Roses in the early 90s, he formed Slash's Snake Pit. And in 1995 put out an album called It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere.
Yeah.
And which you know about, Brian, because it's got one of your favourite singers on it, Eric Dover.
Fabulous singer. Great guitar player too. Yeah.
Exactly. Great singer. But it's the follow-up to that, which came out in 2000, which I'm going to talk about very, very quickly, which is absolutely, in my opinion, great album. Ain't Life Grand, it's called. Came out in 2000. And I defy anyone to listen to the opening track and not... It's a feel-good rock. It's a good album all over, but the song Been There Lately, it's one of those... we've got this new feature coming up, which you don't know about, Brian, called The Comfort Zone.
Okay.
Now, it's going to be songs or albums that you go to either rejuvenate you, to chill you out, de-stress, or whatever. Anyway, I quite often turn to Been There Lately by Slash's Snake Pit. So I want a bit of a kick up the backside if I want to get the day going. I'll put that on because it is a great tune. It has got a great song called Shine, Mean Bone, Just Like Anything. I mean, just good stuff. Rod Jackson was the singer on it. Great singer. Also features Kelly Hansen on backing vocals on one or two of the songs. Produced by Jack Douglas. Now, we haven't talked about Jack, but he worked with John Lennon and Yoko Ono. He worked with Cheap Trick, New York Dolls, so another one with a great pedigree as a producer. Anyway, enough waffling. My hidden gem this week is Ain't Life Grand. Now I've got a secondary hidden gem. Now, earlier we talked about a variety of producers, and I noticed there's a new series of classic albums that's come out recently. Now, Classic Albums is one of those TV shows been going on for a long, long time. Find it online, and they've covered all manner of different albums, whether it be rock or reggae or blues or whatever. And there's a few rock albums that, we've been inspired by, let's say.
Yeah.
They do a great review of Hysteria, Nevermind's on there, the Black Album. And recently, there's an excellent review of Songs from the Big Chair, which is the Tears for Fears album, which is a great album.
It is a brilliant album.
Songs from the Big Chair. I know it's not rock, and also The Who Sell Out. So they brought the series up to date. So check out the series, classic albums, some new stuff has been recorded and has been put out. Just good stuff. Good behind the scenes review of the albums and how they were put together and the players and so on.
Excellent.
Gems. Hashtag HGT.
Hashtag HGT.
It's a bit of a mouthful there, isn't it? Hashtag HGT.
We probably need to stick that into Google and make sure that it doesn't come up with something.
Oh, that's true. Like some terrorist group somewhere or something like that. That's good point. Good point. I will.
Yes.
Yes. As always, thanks for listening, everyone. We appreciate it. Get in touch, as I would say. Facebook, Twitter, at FTAT #HGT. and if see you next time.
And if you like the show, we always usually say at the start of the show, but we missed it this time. We're on Apple Podcasts and other podcasting services. So subscribe to the show, and you'll get all of the latest shows when they come out as well too. Matt, I shall see you next time. Have a great rest of the week, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Mate. All right.
Bye.
Bye. For those about to pod, we salute you is a Mealy Rogers media production. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next time.